A ruthless king of the city finds a girl in the rain, bloody, shaking, and carved with 2 words, "Dirty Widow." He takes her in, locks the doors, and breaks his own rule. He protects a stranger. But the mark isn't an insult. It's a code. Her marriage looks fake. Her widow papers look bought. And the men who branded her? They're listening from inside his own walls. As storms hit and bullets crack glass, he makes a savage choice. Bind her to him on paper, then burn the pipeline that sells women like a product. But when a ghost from her past steps out alive, the trap snaps shut. An auction, a countdown, a betrayal in his bloodline. If the most dangerous man in the city claims her as his, will it save her life, or cost them both their souls? The rain hammered against the windows of Leon's private medical room, each drop an echoing reminder of how he'd found her. Under the harsh fluorescent lights, Marin's skin was pale as paper, except for the angry red letters carved into her flesh. Leon's jaw clenched as he watched Dr. Romano work, the medic's steady hands placing each stitch with practiced precision. Nonna Livia moved like a shadow around the room, her small frame carrying an authority that even Leon respected. She adjusted the saline drip and checked Marin's temperature with the back of her weathered hand. "Her fever's rising," she murmured, reaching for a cool cloth. Leon stood at the window, his reflection a dark slash against the rain-streaked glass. His fingers traced the seam of Marin's coat, feeling the subtle difference in texture that had caught his attention. Something was sewn into the hem, something that shouldn't be there. "Emilio," he called softly. His right-hand man materialized from the shadows of the doorway. "What did you find on the cameras?" "2 men, both professionals. They're good, keeping to the blind spots, but I caught one face under the street lamp. Running it now." Emilio's voice was low, measured. "They're still circling, 3rd pass in the last hour." Leon nodded, his attention returning to the coat. "Get me scissors! The fine ones from Nonna's sewing kit." Nonna shot him a look that would have withered a lesser man. "Those are my good shears, Leone." "I'll buy you new ones," he replied, not looking up from his inspection of the garment. The old woman huffed, but retrieved the scissors herself, knowing better than to trust anyone else with her prized possessions. The rain continued its assault as Leon carefully snipped the first few stitches. The hem was expertly sewn, the wire nearly invisible unless you knew exactly what to look for. As he worked, Dr. Romano finished the last of Marin's stitches and began cleaning up his tools. "She'll need antibiotics," the doctor said, stripping off his gloves. "And those wounds will scar if they're not treated properly." "They meant them to scar," Leon replied, his voice carrying an edge that made everyone in the room still for a moment. "They wanted her marked." On the medical bed, Marin stirred restlessly, her fingers clutching at the sheets. Nonna immediately moved to her side, smoothing back sweat-dampened hair with gentle hands. "Shh, Piccola, you're safe here." Leon's fingers found the end of the wire and carefully began extracting it from the hem. It was thin, nearly invisible, the kind used in high-end surveillance equipment. "Emilio," he called again, holding up the wire. "Find out what this is connected to." The enforcer took the wire with careful fingers, examining it under the light. "Looks like a transmitter thread. They've been tracking her." A crash of thunder made Marin jerk awake, her eyes wild with fear. "No, please!" she gasped, trying to sit up despite her injuries. Nonna's hands were firm but gentle on her shoulders. "Easy now, child. No one here will hurt you." Leon moved to the bedside, his presence filling Marin's field of vision. "You're at the Viscari Club," he said, his voice controlled and steady. "You're safe." Marin's eyes darted between him and the door, calculation visible even through her fear. "They'll come for me," she whispered. "They always find me." "Not anymore," Leon stated, the words carrying the weight of an oath. He held up the wire for her to see. "This is how they were tracking you. It's over now." Understanding dawned in her eyes, followed quickly by fresh terror. "Oh God," she breathed. "The coat, I bought it at a second-hand store 3 days ago. I thought I was being careful." "They planned this," Emilio said from his position by the door. "Set up the store, waited for her to find it." Leon's expression darkened. Professional surveillance, coordinated hunters, and an elaborate trap. This was no random act of violence. "Who are they?" he asked Marin directly. She shook her head, tears spilling over. "I don't know. I never saw their faces. They started following me after Daniel." Her voice broke on the name. Daniel, Leona pressed, even as Nonna made a disapproving sound. My husband, Marin whispered. He died 6 months ago. Car accident. But it wasn't... She swallowed hard. It wasn't an accident. The rain seemed to grow louder in the silence that followed. Leone exchanged a look with Emilio, years of working together, allowing them to communicate without words. Someone had orchestrated this, the husband's death, the surveillance, the attack. The question was why. Rest now, Nonna interrupted, pulling the blanket higher around Marin's shoulders. Questions can wait until morning. But Leone could see the exhaustion warring with fear in Marin's eyes. She didn't want to sleep, didn't trust that she would wake up safe. He recognized that look, had seen it in his own mirror years ago, after the car bomb that killed his fiancée. I'll stay, he said, surprising everyone in the room, including himself. He met Marin's startled gaze. No one comes through that door without going. Through me first. Something shifted in her expression. Not quite trust, but perhaps the first seed of it. She nodded slightly, her body gradually relaxing against the pillows as the sedatives pulled her back under. The micro-listening device glinted under Dr. Romano's surgical light as he extracted it from the coat hem with steady hands. He dropped it into the lead-lined tin that Emilio held out, the soft click of metal on metal, barely audible over the hum of medical equipment. Across the room, Nonna Livia's movements were gentle but methodical as she cleaned dried blood from Marin's skin. The carved letters remained angry and red, a brutal message etched into flesh. The old woman's lips moved in silent prayer as she worked, her experienced hands never faltering despite the rage in her eyes. Leone stood by the window, watching the pre-dawn darkness grip the city. His reflection showed a man coiled tight with controlled fury, hands clasped behind his back to hide their tension. A small sound from the medical bed drew everyone's attention. Marin's eyes fluttered open, confusion quickly replaced by recognition and wariness. Nonna immediately helped her sit up, bringing a mug of warm chicken broth to her lips. Small sips, she instructed softly. You need strength. Marin's hands shook as she took the mug, but her voice was steady when she spoke. They were waiting outside Thompson's pharmacy on 8th Street. Her knuckles whitened around the ceramic. I was picking up antibiotics for my neighbor's kid. Leone turned from the window. How many? 3, maybe 4. She took another careful sip. They wore masks, black gloves. One grabbed me from behind while another opened the van door. Her voice caught. They had everything ready inside. Restraints. The knife. Nonna's hand found Marin's shoulder, squeezing gently. Leone's expression remained neutral, but his jaw tightened. The door, Marin continued, her words coming faster now. It didn't close properly. They argued about it at the red light on Mason Street. I saw my chance and ran. A bitter laugh escaped her. Guess they thought I wouldn't risk it with traffic coming. You survived, Nonna said firmly. That's what matters. Leone exchanged a look with Emilio, who nodded and slipped out of the room. You'll stay in my penthouse, Leone announced. Top floor, secure access only. I can't, Marin started to protest. You can and will. His tone left no room for argument. The entire floor is a safe zone. No one enters without clearance. Windows remain locked. No personal phones or devices. The house phone is programmed with an emergency code, 5E479. Dr. Romano will check your wounds every 8 hours. Marin's fingers traced the edge of her bandages. How long? Until I say otherwise. Leone nodded to Nonna. Get her cleaned up and settled. Use the master suite's bathroom. While Nonna helped Marin to the shower, Leone strode to his office, where Emilio waited with the security feeds. The timestamps showed the van circling twice before dropping Marin, a deliberate choice of location. They knew the blind spots, Emilio reported grimly. Someone gave them our patrol schedule. Leone's expression darkened. Start with the newer hires. Check everyone's devices by noon. His phone buzzed, a response from his contact in the underground information network. The message was brief but clear. Dirty Widow, Sibah, Petrov's mark. Used on disposable assets or auction inventory. The Bratva, specifically Damir Petrov's operation. Leone had crossed paths with the man before, a bureaucrat turned crime lord who preferred psychological warfare to brute force. This was his signature, marking victims before destroying them completely. Dawn began to paint the sky in shades of pink and gold as Leone stood in the penthouse living room, watching light creep across the river. Behind him, he could hear Nonna settling Marion into the master bedroom, her quiet Italian murmurs a contrast to the clinical orders he was about to give. "Emilio," he said as his enforcer appeared silently at his shoulder, "let the bug transmit. Feed it carefully. Make them think she'll be alone tonight. Let's see who comes hunting." "You'll move her?" "No." Leone's reflection showed the ghost of a smile. "We'll be ready, but they won't find what they're expecting." Emilio nodded and withdrew to begin preparations. The trap was set. Now they would wait to see what kind of predators they'd caught in their net. Through the open bedroom door, Leone caught a glimpse of Maureen sitting on the edge of his bed, hands clenched in her lap as Nonna carefully combed her damp hair. The morning light caught the bandages on her skin, stark white against fresh bruises. She looked small in borrowed clothes, but her spine was straight, her chin lifted despite everything. Something stirred in Leone's chest, an echo of old pain, mixed with something fiercer. Protective instinct, perhaps. Or maybe just the simple recognition of a survivor. Either way, he found himself making a silent promise as he watched the sun rise over his city. Whoever had marked her would soon learn the price of hunting on Veskari territory. And Amir Petrov would discover that some wounds couldn't be inflicted with a knife. Some came from underestimating the wrong man's mercy. The klaxon's sudden wail made Marin flinch. Her stitches pulled as she pressed against the service stairwell wall, heart hammering. The drill's echo bounced off concrete, disorienting her. She'd only wanted to test the exits to know her options. Heavy boots thundered up the steps. A guard, Marco, she remembered from breakfast, appeared around the corner. His face remained professionally blank as he blocked her path. "Ms. Hale, please return upstairs." His tone was gentle, but left no room for argument. "It's a fire drill," she protested, gesturing at the flashing lights. "Aren't we supposed to evacuate?" "Staged." "Drill, ma'am. Mr. Viscari's orders." He extended his arm, indicating the way back. "The penthouse has separate safety protocols." Marin's shoulders slumped. Even an emergency evacuation was controlled. She let Marco escort her back, noting how he positioned himself between her and any potential escape route. Leone waited in the penthouse living room, his broad frame silhouetted against floor-to-ceiling windows. Without turning, he pressed a button on a sleek remote. A panel slid open in the wall, revealing a bank of security monitors. "Come here." His voice was low, commanding. Marin approached cautiously. The screen showed multiple angles of the street below, the nightclub entrance, the alley, adjacent corners. Her breath caught as a familiar white van cruised past for the second time. "Watch," Leone instructed. A man approached the nightclub's front door. The camera zoomed in on his hand as he knocked. Distinctive tattoos marked his knuckles. Marin's stomach lurched. "You recognize him?" She shook her head. "The gloves. They wore gloves, but that van—" Her voice cracked. Leone pressed another button. A small evidence bag appeared on screen, containing what looked like a thread-sized wire. "This was in your coat hem," he explained. "A listening device, professional grade, nearly undetectable." His dark eyes fixed on her. "They're hunting you systematically. We've been feeding it staged conversations, making them think you'll be vulnerable tonight." The van made a third pass. Reality crashed down like a wave. Marin gripped the window ledge, suddenly dizzy. She couldn't just walk away. She'd be painting a target on her back. They were waiting, watching, ready to finish what they'd started. She swallowed hard. "I need to think." Leone's expression remained impassive. "Think quickly. They're getting impatient." She straightened, mind racing. 48 hours, she proposed. "I'll cooperate. Follow your rules. After that, if it's safe, you walk me out yourself. If it's not—" She met his gaze. "We renegotiate." A long moment passed. Leone studied her face, searching for something. Finally, he nodded once. Agreed. Nonna arrived with fresh bandages and antiseptic. Her weathered hands were gentle as she peeled back the gauze covering Marin's carved skin. "Tsk. Still angry," she murmured, dabbing medicine along the wounds. "Scar cream only works if you let the skin heal, Tesoro. No more reopening." Marin winced as the antiseptic stung. "How long until the marks fade?" Nonna's eyes softened. "That depends on you. Some scars need time, others need forgiveness." Dr. Romano returned in the late afternoon. He examined the wounds with clinical efficiency, frowning at the inflammation. "We need proper debridement. The initial cleaning wasn't thorough enough. Too risky while you were in shock." Marin tensed. "I don't want—" "Light sedation," he assured her. "Just enough to manage the pain. You'll wake feeling Better. She looked to Leone, who had materialized in the doorway. His jaw was tight as he nodded. Do it! The sedative worked quickly. As Marin's consciousness began to fade, she heard Leone speaking quietly to Emilio. Camera 3, he said. Watch the courier. Through heavy eyelids, Marin saw the security feed. A man in a delivery uniform was fiddling with a fire extinguisher cabinet in the stairwell. Second bug, Emilio asked. Let it stay. Keeps the trap viable. Leone's voice grew distant as darkness crept in. Be ready on the loading dock by 9. The last thing Marin registered was the gentle pressure of Nona's hand on her forehead and the sound of Leone giving orders in rapid Italian. Then the sedative pulled her under, into dreamless quiet where carved words couldn't follow. Earlier she'd tested her cage and found it solid. Now, drugged and vulnerable, she could only trust that the bars keeping her in would also keep her hunters out. The thought should have terrified her. Instead, as consciousness slipped away, she found herself grateful for the weight of Leone's protection, even if it came wrapped in silk-lined steel. In the monitoring room, Leone watched the courier's van pull away. The man's movements had been too practiced, too precise. He'd known exactly where to plant the device. Another piece of the puzzle, another thread in the web closing around Marine. But webs could be turned against their makers. By morning, he'd know exactly who was pulling the strings. The medic worked steadily, cleaning dead tissue from Marine's wounds, while Nona murmured quiet prayers. Leone forced himself to watch, to memorize each cut, each bruise. He'd seen worse violence, dealt worse himself. But something about these particular marks, the calculated cruelty, the message they carried, stirred a cold rage he hadn't felt in years. 48 hours, she'd bargained. He'd agreed, knowing it was likely a lie. The kind of people who carved warnings into women's flesh didn't give up easily. They wouldn't stop hunting her until they were stopped permanently. Rain drummed against the penthouse windows as evening settled over the building. The steady hum of service elevators and squeaking wheels from linen carts filtered through the halls. Normal rhythms that felt surreal after the day's events. Marin sat curled in an armchair, watching droplets race down the glass. Her wounds ached less after the debridement, though the memory of each cut remained sharp. Nona appeared with a soft gray cashmere sweater and thick wool socks. You're shivering, Kara. The older woman's tone brooked no argument. Put these on. The sweater's warmth helped, but guilt gnawed at Marin's conscience. There's something I need to tell you, she said quietly. In my shoe lining, the ones I was wearing, there's a burner phone. Leone materialized from the shadows, dark eyes intent. Where? Left shoe, inside heel. Her voice wavered. I kept it for emergencies. He retrieved the shoe from a locked cabinet, extracted a thin blade from his sleeve, and carefully split the lining. The small phone tumbled out. As if on cue, it vibrated. Leone answered on speaker without hesitation. A text notification lit the screen. Widow? Payment cleared? Tell me about the marriage. His voice was deceptively soft. Marin wrapped her arms around herself. 6 months ago. Courthouse wedding. He seemed normal, quiet. Said he'd pay off my medical debt if I helped with some paperwork. She swallowed hard. After the ceremony, he disappeared. I never saw him again. And last week, a message saying he died in a warehouse fire. Her fingers twisted in the sweater. That's all I knew until they grabbed me. Leone's jaw tightened. The warehouse address? She recited it from memory. Something dangerous flickered in his eyes. Petrov Shell Company, he said flatly. The marriage was a trap. They used legitimate paperwork to establish ownership for trafficking. Nona made a soft sound of distress, reaching for Marin's hand. Found the courthouse records, Emilio announced from the doorway, tablet in hand. Marriage license links to offshore accounts. Same pattern repeating. Quick ceremonies, women with debt. Most vanish within months. Marin felt sick. How many? 12 in the past year. Emilio's expression was grim. All listed as widows now. The building's security feed suddenly lit up. 2 men approached the loading dock, moving with practiced efficiency. 9:17 p.m. glowed in the corner of the screen. Leone watched them test the doors, then gestured to his men through the camera feed. The guards emerged, weapons visible, and the intruders melted away into the shadows. No arrests, Leone ordered quietly. Let them think we're just doing routine patrols. We need to see where this leads. He turned to a large city map mounted on the wall, uncapped a red marker, and drew an X over the warehouse location. Each precise stroke felt like a promise of violence to come. Marin paced, too wired to rest, despite exhaustion pulling at her bones. The carved words throbbed beneath her bandages, a brand she hadn't agreed to, marking her as property in a game she hadn't known she was playing. "You need sleep," Leone said, watching her movements. "Tomorrow morning, after the doctor checks you, we're moving to a secure location." His eyes tracked to the bug they'd let remain in the stairwell. "Whoever's listening will adapt their approach soon. We need to be gone before that happens." Nonna brought tea laced with honey and what Maureen suspected were mild sedatives. The older woman's presence was steadying, a reminder that even in this world of shadows and violence, genuine care could exist. "Such pretty hands," Nonna murmured, examining Marin's fingers. "A nurse's hands, you said? Healing hands shouldn't bear such ugliness." "I was only a part-time aide," Marin corrected softly. "Nothing special. Special enough." "To catch their attention," Leone interjected. He stood at the window, profile sharp against the rain-streaked glass. "They don't waste resources on random targets." The implications of that sent a chill down Marin's spine. Her husband had asked questions about her medical training, seeming pleased when she described basic procedures. Had that been part of their calculation? Did they specifically seek out women with healthcare experience? Emilio worked silently in the corner, correlating data between courthouse records and known Bratva operations. The soft tapping of his keyboard provided a counterpoint to the rain, creating an oddly peaceful rhythm despite the circumstances. The tea slowly worked its magic. Marin felt her anxiety begin to soften around the edges, though sleep remained elusive. She watched Leone maintain his vigil by the window, noted how his hand never strayed far from his weapon, and wondered if he ever truly rested, or if hypervigilance was simply his natural state. The building settled deeper into night. Dinner carts rattled back to the kitchens. Shift changes brought new guards with fresh coffee and alert eyes. Through it all, the rain kept falling, washing the streets clean while secrets and shadows played out behind drawn curtains. Security feeds showed the van making one final pass before midnight. Leone tracked its movement with predatory focus, memorizing details. The slight dent in the rear panel, the way it listed slightly to one side, the partial plate visible through the rain. Each piece of information was a thread to follow, a way to unravel the web they'd tried to spin around Marin. Tomorrow would bring movement, risk, the uncertainty of transit between secure locations. But for now, they existed in this strange bubble of waiting, protected by walls and weapons and Leone's iron will, while unseen watchers monitored empty corridors and fed false intelligence back to their masters. Thunder cracked across the sky, and the city grid flickered like dying stars. Marin jolted awake, heart racing from a nightmare where gloved hands carved endless words into her skin. The penthouse hummed with emergency power, casting strange shadows through backup lighting. She padded barefoot into the kitchen, following a thin line of light, and froze. Leone stood shirtless at the counter, dabbing antiseptic on a fresh cut along his ribs. Old scars mapped his torso, some surgical neat, others jagged with violence. "Can't sleep?" he asked without turning. "Bad dreams." She stepped closer, noting how the wound curved like a knife slice. "That looks deep." "Surface damage. It'll heal." He set down the gauze, muscles shifting under marked skin. "I've had worse." Thunder rolled again, closer now. In the strange half-light, Leone's usual walls seemed thinner. "Years ago," he said quietly, "I almost died in a car bomb. Lost someone. A woman I was going to marry." The admission hung between them, heavy with unspoken grief. "I'm sorry," Marin whispered, understanding the weight of that kind of loss. "It taught me about control, backup systems, contingencies." His jaw tightened. "Never being unprepared again." Lightning flashed, illuminating the kitchen in stark white. Marin flinched, and Leone noticed. "Here." He moved behind her, voice dropping low. "A grounding technique. 5 things you can see." "The counter," she started. "Your shirt on the chair, the window, that plant in the corner, the coffee maker." 4 things you can touch." Her fingers traced the cool granite countertop, the soft weave of her borrowed sweater, the smooth wood of a cabinet, the rough texture of a dish towel. 3 things you hear. Thunder, rain on glass, you're breathing. 2 things you smell. Coffee grounds, antiseptic. 1 thing you taste. She touched her lip. Mint toothpaste. The exercise settled her nerves, brought her fully into her body. She noticed Leone's discarded shirt had a loose button. "Let me," she offered, finding a sewing kit in Nonna's drawer. Her fingers remained steady as she reattached the button. the small domestic task oddly comforting. Leone watched her work with quiet intensity. "Steady hands." "Helps with nursing. Helped," she corrected. "Before everything." The power chose that moment to flicker again. Leone grabbed a flashlight and gestured for her to follow. "Come, you should know the backup systems." He led her to the secure elevator, explaining redundant power supplies and mechanical overrides. Even if everything fails, these safe room locks work independently. He demonstrated the backup generator connections, the multiple escape routes. "You really do plan for everything," Marin observed. "I have to." His expression hardened. People who don't prepare end up dead. Dawn crept closer, painting the storm clouds in shades of gray. At exactly 7 a.m., the medic arrived for her checkup. The carved wounds were clean but angry-looking, the skin hot to the touch. "Inflammation," the medic noted, preparing an antibiotic injection. "We'll do another dose in 12 hours." Marin didn't flinch at the needle. Leone noticed, adding it to his growing list of her strengths. As morning fully arrived, the storm began to clear. Emilio appeared with surveillance photos and building layouts spread across Leone's desk. "Petrov's moving cargo tonight," Leone stated, marking entry points on a map. "We hit their drop point. Clean, controlled strike." He turned to Marin. "You'll watch from a sealed SUV. Safe distance, bulletproof glass. But you need to understand what we're dealing with." She met his gaze steadily. "I won't hide from what's hunting me." "Good." He approved of her resolve. Knowledge is protection. Nonna arrived with coffee and fresh bandages, clucking over Marin's inflammation. The older woman's presence softened the tactical planning happening around them. Her practical care, a counterpoint to discussions of violence. "Such brave girl," Nonna murmured, applying cooling cream to the carved skin. "But bravery needs wisdom too, yes? Watch, learn, stay alive." Marin nodded, sipping the strong coffee. She studied the surveillance photos, forcing herself to look at the men who had marked her. Their faces were ordinary. That was the terrifying part. Evil didn't always wear a monster's mask. Leone moved through the penthouse with focused energy, coordinating team positions and extraction routes. He paused occasionally to check Marin's reaction, gauging her ability to handle the reality of what was coming. She met each look with determination. The nightmare that woke her still lingered, but now it fueled her resolve. They had tried to break her, to mark her as property. But here she sat, drinking coffee in a fortified penthouse, while trained men planned retribution on her behalf. Emilio worked quietly, efficient as always. His tablet displayed shipping manifests and dock schedules, each detail another piece of the trap they would spring that night. The morning light strengthened, chasing away storm shadows. Marin touched her bandaged skin, feeling the raised lines beneath. They had meant those carved words to define her. Instead, they had pushed her into Leone's orbit, a man who understood both violence and protection, who planned for every contingency except, perhaps, the way she was beginning to matter to him. Thunder growled one final time, distant now. The city grid stabilized, regular power returning. But Marin had seen beneath the surface, the backup systems, the careful planning, the layers of security that kept Leone's world running. She understood better now why he moved with such controlled precision. In his world, chaos meant death, and preparation meant survival. The medic packed away his supplies, scheduling the next antibiotic dose. Marin rolled down her sleeve, already thinking ahead to tonight's operation. She would watch, she would learn, and she would understand exactly what kind of war she had stumbled into. The orange glow of sunset painted long shadows across the docks. Marin sat in the armored SUV's back seat, her breath fogging the bullet-resistant glass. The headset felt heavy against her ears, carrying whispered commands and confirmations. Through the gathering mist, Leone moved like a shadow given purpose. His team flanked him, dark figures emerging and dissolving back into the fog. The precision of their movements reminded Marin of a dance, albeit one where missteps meant death. "Target approaching!" Emilio's voice crackled through the headset. "2 couriers, northwest corner." Marin's fingers gripped the leather seat as she watched. The strike happened so fast she almost missed it. Leone's team materializing from 3 directions, the courier's hands rising in surrender. No shots fired, no screams, just the efficient securing of weapons and crates. The fog curled around their ankles as Leone approached the first courier. Even from this distance, Marin could read the authority in his stance. He didn't need to shout or threaten. His mere presence extracted compliance. "The efficiency is beautiful," murmured the driver, catching Marin's wide-eyed reflection in the rearview mirror. "Like watching a surgeon, yes." She nodded, unable to look away. Leone's violence was contained, purposeful, nothing like the brutal chaos she'd experienced in that van. He cleared civilian areas first, positioned his men to prevent collateral damage, controlled every variable. The first courier broke quickly under questioning. Marin leaned forward, straining to hear through the headset. "Nestorov," the man gasped. "Gavril Nestorov handles the paperwork." "The women aren't the product," the second courier added, words tumbling out. "It's the death certificates, the identity transfers. Clean paper's worth more than flesh." Leone's expression hardened. He seized a phone from one courier's jacket, scrolling through its contents while Emilio secured the crates. Marin recognized that look. He'd found something significant. The operation wrapped up with the same precision it began. Within minutes, the crates were loaded into waiting vehicles, the couriers zip-tied and bundled into separate cars. No evidence remained that anything had occurred on these quiet docks. The SUV pulled into Leone's private garage 40 minutes later. The medic waited by his station, antiseptic and antibiotics ready. Marin rolled up her sleeve without prompting. 12 hours exactly, the medic noted, checking his watch before administering the injection. "We maintain strict continuity with these doses." Marin barely felt the needle, her mind still processing what she'd witnessed. Leone had demonstrated controlled power, strategic violence, and she felt safer for having seen it. The realization should have troubled her more than it did. "Good level of inflammation reduction," the medic commented, examining her carved wounds. "The regular dosing is helping." Leone appeared beside them, his presence filling the space. He'd already changed from his tactical gear into a crisp black shirt, as if the dock operation had been nothing more than a business meeting. "Your office," he told Marin. "There's something you need to see." Upstairs, he spread printouts across a heavy wooden table. The ledger from the courier's phone had been partially decoded. Rows of dates, courthouse locations, death certificates filed within days of marriage licenses. "The pattern," Leone explained, his finger tracing connections. "Small courthouse weddings, always to men whose identities lead nowhere. Then a convenient accident, usually fire, creates a fresh widow. The death certificate and identity transfer appear within days, sold to the highest bidder." Marin's stomach churned as she recognized her own courthouse, her own quick marriage. "They planned it all, from the very beginning." "They did." Leone circled her entry in red ink. The dates aligned perfectly. Marriage, license, warehouse fire, widow notification. "But this is where their chain breaks. I'm severing it here." He pointed to a column of numbers. "Each transfer creates new documentation. Clean identities are worth fortunes to certain buyers. The women are just vehicles for the paperwork." "That's why they marked me," Marin realized. "They needed me alive, but broken, compliant, until the transfer completed." Leone's jaw tightened. "Yes, but they made a critical error bringing their operation onto my territory." Nonna appeared with coffee and fresh bandages, tutting at Marin's paleness. "Enough business tonight," she insisted. "Girl needs rest after watching such things." But Marin shook her head, studying the ledger entries. "I need to understand this. All of it." Leone approved of her focus. He explained how identity trafficking networks operated, how fixers like Nestorov laundered documentation through legitimate channels. The coffee grew cold as they traced patterns, identified weak points, mapped the infrastructure of paper and blood that had nearly claimed her life. Near midnight, Nonna returned with fresh coffee and gentle insistence. "Understanding can wait until tomorrow. Healing cannot." Marin realized her hands were shaking, not from fear but from the intensity of processing everything she'd witnessed. The surgical precision of Leone's strike, the cold efficiency of the trafficking network, the red circle around her name, marking where one man's protection would break another's carefully constructed system. Leone gathered the printouts, his movements deliberate. "We'll continue tomorrow. The ledger isn't complete, but it's enough to start dismantling their operation." Marin touched the bandage covering her carved skin. "They thought marking me would make me theirs. They never expected it would lead me here instead." "No," Leone agreed, his voice carrying dangerous promise. "They didn't." Emilio burst into the penthouse library at dawn, papers clutched in his hand, chest heaving from running up the service stairs. "The courthouse records," he said between breaths. "It's worse than we thought." Leone looked up from his coffee, instantly alert. Marin set down her tea, tension crawling up her spine. "Your courthouse husband?" Emilio spread documents across the table. His identity links to 3 other widows in the past 18 months. Same pattern, quick marriage, staged death, identity sold. How? Leone demanded, scanning the papers. Judge Marcus Wells. He's rubber stamping everything. Checked his financials. He's drowning in gambling debts to underground casinos. Marin's hands trembled as she picked up one of the marriage certificates. The signatures looked perfect. Official. Legal. So my current status makes you movable again, Leone finished grimly. On paper, you're a legal widow. Your identity can be transferred, sold, remarried, all perfectly documented. He paced the length of the library, thoughts racing. Behind his controlled expression, finally he turned to face her. There's one solution, the most effective shield in my world. He paused. Marry me. Now. On paper. It would block any transfer or claim they try to process. No. Marin's refusal was instant, visceral. She backed away from the table. I won't be a pawn again, not even to save myself. This would be different, Leone insisted. You'd have full autonomy, medical power of attorney. The window exploded. Glass sprayed across the room as Leone lunged, covering Marin with his body. The rifle round scorched past his shoulder, burning fabric and skin. Guards shouted outside, returning fire as the sniper's position was marked. Target's moving northeast, a voice crackled over Leone's radio. In pursuit! The medic rushed in, medical kit already open. Let me see that shoulder, boss. Leone remained tense, scanning the broken window while the medic cleaned and bound the graze. His shirt was ruined, blood seeping through the torn fabric. Marin touched the bandage on his shoulder with shaking fingers. He'd moved without hesitation to shield her. Again. You could have been killed. But I wasn't. His eyes met hers, intense and unwavering. This is the reality we're facing. They won't stop until they have you, or until you're legally untouchable. Nonna appeared with a broom, muttering in Italian as she swept glass. Stupid way to get shot standing in front of windows, both of you, away from there. Marin let Leone guide her to a safer corner, her mind racing. The marriage proposal wasn't about possession. It was pure strategy. A legal shield against legal exploitation. If we do this, she said slowly, I want everything in writing. A prenup covering autonomy, medical decisions, financial separation. This is survival, nothing more. Leone nodded. I'll have it drafted immediately. Judge Carter owes me a favor. He's clean, and he'll keep it quiet. Now? Marin's voice cracked slightly. Now, before they try again. Leone's radio crackled. The sniper had escaped into the maze of side streets. We can't wait. The next few hours passed in a blur of activity. A lawyer arrived with documents explaining each clause of the prenup in detail. Marin read every word twice, ensuring her independence was protected. Leone added provisions she hadn't even considered. Separate accounts, clear exit terms, medical privacy. As midnight approached, Judge Carter arrived looking nervous but determined. The penthouse library, now with boards over the broken window, became an impromptu wedding chapel. Nonna insisted on fresh flowers from the kitchen vases, arranging them quickly on the desk. Emilio stood as witness, his usual stoic expression softened with concern. Nonna dabbed her eyes with a handkerchief, muttering that even strategic weddings deserve tears. Marin's hands trembled as she faced Leone. The ceremony was brief, practical, no flowing promises of eternal love, just legal words, binding them together on paper. Yet when Leone repeated the vows, his voice carried weight beyond mere strategy. I, Leone Marco Viscari, take you, Marin Elizabeth Hale. The words echoed in the quiet library. Marin's voice stayed steady as she responded, though her fingers shook when Leone slipped a simple gold band onto her hand. Practical jewelry from his personal safe. Nothing flashy to draw attention. Judge Carter presented the marriage registry with relief, clearly eager to depart. Leone signed first, his signature bold and certain. Marin added hers, the ink still wet, when Nonna whisked the document away to lock in the wall safe. There, Nonna announced, patting the safe door. Now you are legal, proper. No more shooting through windows, I hope. Through the boards, they could see the rain had finally stopped. The city fell into unusual quiet, as if acknowledging the weight of what had just transpired. Marin touched the ring on her finger, a shield, not a chain. A choice made on her terms, even if forced by circumstance. Leone watched her with an expression both possessive and reverent, like a man given custody of something precious and dangerous. Not love, not yet, but perhaps something equally powerful. Respect, mixed with the promise of protection. Nonna shooed the judge and lawyer toward the elevator, leaving them alone in the library. The flower scent mixed with gunpowder residue and fresh wood from the window repairs, a perfect summary of their unconventional union. Nonna's nose wrinkled as she dusted the antique mantel clock. Something wasn't right. After 60 years of managing households, she trusted her instincts. The clock's mahogany case gleamed, but a metallic scent lingered. Too sharp, too new. "Leon," she called softly. "Come see this clock your grandfather loved so much." He appeared instantly, reading her tone. Nonna pointed to a tiny hole, barely visible in the wood grain. Leon's expression hardened as he examined it, finding wires threaded through the mechanism. "A camera," he said flatly. "The penthouse is compromised." He pulled out his phone. "Emilio, prep for immediate move to the villa, full protocol." Marin entered as Leon extracted the device with precise movements. "What's wrong?" "We're leaving. Someone's been watching." He crushed the camera under his heel. "Pack only essentials. Nonna will help." The next hour moved like a well-rehearsed dance. Nonna produced a bag with soft sneakers for Maureen, practical clothes, and basic toiletries. The medic arrived with labeled medication doses and fresh bandages. "Clean the wound twice daily," he instructed, demonstrating proper technique. "Watch for increased redness or warmth. These antibiotics must be taken exactly 12 hours apart." Leon's security team executed their roles smoothly. Emilio drove out first in the SUV they'd been using, while Leon guided Maureen to a nondescript sedan with reinforced panels. They took back roads, avoiding main highways. The coastal villa emerged from morning fog like a forgotten painting. Sun-bleached stone walls rose 3 stories, crowned with wrought iron balconies. Flowering vines draped the facade, softening the fortress-like structure. Below, waves lapped at a private cove, the water a deep Mediterranean blue. "My family's sanctuary," Leon explained, helping Marin from the car. "Every defense you can imagine, plus a few you can't." Inside, old wealth whispered through crystal chandeliers and hand-carved banisters, but modern security hummed beneath the surface. Leon showed her the basics: generator controls, panic rooms disguised as linen closets, communication systems. "The chapel," he said, pushing open heavy wooden doors. Filtered sunlight played through stained glass, illuminating worn prayer benches and faded frescoes. "My mother lit candles here every morning, said it kept evil at bay." Nonna appeared with a basket. "Enough touring. Maureen needs air and sunshine. Come, Bella, we walk the beach." The afternoon unfolded gently. Marin let sand sift through her toes as Nonna shared stories of Leone as a boy, racing paper boats in the cove. The old woman's presence was therapeutic, grounding. "You want to learn protection?" Leon asked later, finding them collecting shells. At Marin's nod, he retrieved a small pistol. "Start with basics." He set up tin cans on a driftwood log, standing behind her to adjust her stance. "Breathe steady. Focus on the front sight." His hands positioned her shoulders, professional but careful of her healing wounds. The first shot went wide, the second clipped a can, the third knocked one down. "Good," he said simply. "Again." By sunset, Marin had chosen fresh clothes from the guest wardrobe, simple pieces that felt like her own choices, small victories in reclaiming herself. She helped Nonna in the kitchen, kneading bread dough while the old woman prepared sauce that filled the villa with garlic and herbs. Leon found them there, Marin laughing as flour dusted her face. He paused in the doorway, something raw flickering in his expression. Moving closer, he reached to brush flour from her cheek. His thumb lingered, barely touching her skin. The air changed, charged with unspoken possibilities. Marin's breath caught as Leon leaned slightly forward, then forced himself back, jaw tight. "I should check the perimeter," he said roughly, turning away. Nonna clicked her tongue. "Stubborn boy. Go on then. Leave us to make dinner in peace." Later, Leon found Emilio in the security office, reviewing camera feeds. "The leak has to be close," Leon said quietly. "Someone who knew about this place, its significance. The villa location was never in any official records." Emilio nodded, pulling up staff files. "I'll start with anyone who's had access in the last decade. Cross-reference with financial irregularities, unusual patterns." 24 hours, Leone ordered. "I want to know who sold us out. And the Bratva. Connection? One problem at a time." Leon watched a monitor showing Maureen helping Nonna set the dinner table, movements careful but determined. "First we plug the leak." Then we go hunting." The villa settled into evening rhythms. Waves whispered against the shore, security lights cast soft glows on the garden paths, and somewhere in the chapel, a candle still burned. Old protection, meeting new, as it always had in this place of stone and secrets. Marin stood on her balcony, watching stars emerge over the water. The ring on her finger caught moonlight, a reminder of choices made and boundaries drawn. Below, she could hear Leon and Emilio's voices, muted but intent, planning the next moves in this dangerous game. The breeze carried salt and jasmine, so different from city air. Here, surrounded by ancient walls and modern defenses, the threat felt both closer and more distant. Tomorrow would bring its own challenges, but tonight the villa held them all in its weathered embrace, a sanctuary built by generations who understood that sometimes survival meant knowing when to retreat, regroup, and prepare to fight another day. Dawn painted the Mediterranean sky in watercolor hues when Leone's private phone buzzed. The unlisted video message loaded, and his fingers tightened on the device. There, standing beside Damir Petrov in what looked like an ornate study, was Marin's supposedly dead husband, alive, smirking. He lifted a crystal tumbler of amber liquid. "To my dirty widow," the man sneered. "Who thought she could refuse the second phase? Your original sale price has doubled now, thanks to your resistance." Petrov remained silent, but his thin smile spoke volumes. The camera panned briefly across a ledger page, numbers deliberately blurred, before focusing on a date. 2 nights from now. Leone found Marhan in the villa's kitchen, helping Nonna with breakfast preparations. He refused to shield her from this truth. "There's something you need to see," he said, voice controlled. Marhan watched the video twice. The first time, her face went completely still, like a pond freezing over. The second viewing sparked something in her eyes, not fear, but pure, incandescent rage. "I was never his wife," she whispered, hands gripping the counter. "Just paperwork, a bundle of documents with a matching death certificate ready to be sold." "Bella, sit," Nonna insisted, already brewing her special blend of chamomile and valerian root. "Your heart races too fast." The medic arrived for morning rounds, carefully peeling back Marin's bandages. "The carved areas are healing well," he reported, applying fresh antibiotic cream. "No signs of infection. Keep the dressings clean and dry." Once they were alone, Leon's carefully maintained restraint cracked. His fist connected with the study wall, leaving a dent in the centuries-old plaster. But the burst of violence was brief. He immediately redirected his energy to planning. Maps spread across his desk. City, blueprints, underground networks, abandoned subway stations. He marked potential auction sites in red, eliminating those too exposed or too obvious. "Here," he muttered, circling an old wine storage facility. "And here, a defunct railway terminal. Places with multiple exits, climate control for merchandise storage, easy truck access." Marin appeared in the doorway, watching him work. Her face was pale but determined. "Show me," she said. He hesitated only a moment before nodding. She pulled up a chair as he explained his methodology, marking likely locations based on past patterns. "These tunnels could hide dozens of vehicles," she noted, tracing a line with her finger. "And this loading dock connects to 3 different street levels." "Good eye," Leon said quietly. "They'll want quick dispersal options." Throughout the day, Emilio brought reports. Dock workers confirming unusual night activity, security camera footage of black SUVs testing routes, whispers of high-value buyers arriving in private jets. Nonna kept Marin's wound clean, brought her small meals, watched her like a hawk for signs of shock. But Marin remained focused, studying the maps alongside Leon, offering insights from her brief captivity about vehicle types and guard rotations. As twilight approached, she walked out to the villa's wide stone steps. The sea wind played with her hair as she stared at the horizon, where the sun bled orange into darkening blue. Leon found her there, her posture straight despite the healing wounds across her back. She spoke without turning. "I will not be sold again," she said, each word precise and sharp as broken glass. "And I want to help you end this pipeline. No more women carved up and traded like cattle." He moved to stand beside her, close enough to feel her warmth, but not touching. His jaw clenched as he watched the dying light paint shadows across the water. "They will never touch you," he promised, voice low and deadly. "Never again." Marin nodded once, accepting the vow. They stood in silence as stars began appearing, pinpricks of light in the gathering dark. Leon's phone buzzed again. He checked the message, then dialed a number from memory. "Agent Roberts," he said when the call connected. "Remember that favor you owe me about the shipment I redirected from the school district?" He paused, listening. "I have something better than a single bust. How would you like a complete ledger of human trafficking operations? Names, dates, shell companies, everything." Another pause. "Two conditions. First, I need 48 hours of operational blindness in certain areas. Second, when you move hard. No warnings, no deals." Marin watched his face as he negotiated, noting how his expression hardened at whatever the agent said. "Consider how many children attend that school, Roberts. Consider how many parents thanked you for keeping their neighborhood clean." Leone's voice carried absolute authority. "Now consider how many daughters might end up in these ledgers if this operation continues." The agreement came quickly after that. Leone ended the call and turned to find Marin studying him. "You really kept drugs away from a school?" she asked. "Children should be protected," he said simply. "Some lines shouldn't be crossed." The stars were fully visible now, reflecting off the calm sea. Inside the villa, they could hear Nonna directing the evening staff, the comfortable sounds of dishes and closing shutters. "2 nights," Marin murmured, her hands steady as she smoothed her shirt. "We have 2 nights to prepare." Leone nodded, already mentally listing weapons, vehicles, and men he'd need positioned. But for now, he simply stood with her on the steps, letting her draw whatever strength she needed from the peace of the moment. The sea wind carried salt and cypress, ancient smells that had witnessed centuries of battles and betrayals on these shores. Tomorrow would bring planning and preparation, but tonight was for rebuilding resolve, for transforming fear into purpose, for promising vengeance to the darkening sky. The villa's security lights cast long shadows across the garden as Emilio strode through the front door, his face grim. He carried a thick folder, papers bristling with sticky notes and highlights. "Found the leak," he said without preamble, dropping the file on Leone's desk. "It's Tommaso." Leone's expression didn't change, but his fingers went white against the mahogany. "Show me." Emilio spread out bank statements, phone records, and surveillance photos. The evidence formed a clear pattern. Tommaso Vescari, Leone's own cousin, had been feeding information to Petrov's network for months. "He's been skimming from the Widow pipeline," Emilio explained, pointing to offshore transfers. 10% of each sale, the penthouse layout, the marriage records, even the villa's backup systems. All sold. Leone absorbed this betrayal in silence, while Marin watched from the doorway, her arms wrapped around herself. The carved words on her back seemed to burn anew, with the knowledge that family had enabled her marking. At midnight, security cameras caught movement near the greenhouse. Tommaso, thinking he knew all the blind spots, tried to slip in through the glass door where Nonna appeared to doze in her chair. Morin, who had been helping Nonna repot herbs earlier, recognized the antiseptic smell before she saw him, the same clinical scent from the van. Without hesitation, she ducked behind the potting table, her fingers finding the manual valve for the sprinkler system. Water hissed from overhead pipes, creating a disorienting curtain of mist. Through it, Leone emerged like a shadow given form, a thin wire loop ready in his hands. The struggle was brief and controlled. Tommaso went down with a choked gasp as Leone secured his wrists with zip ties. The medic stepped in from his waiting position, monitoring pulse and breathing to prevent premature cardiac failure. "Why?" Leone's voice was terrifyingly soft. Tommaso's laugh was bitter. "Always the perfect son, weren't you? Father's chosen heir while I got the scraps." "The women," Leone pressed. "The trafficking." "Easy money," Tommaso spat. "They were just paper to move around. Marriage certificates, death records, clean medicals for resale. Tomorrow night's batch is worth millions." Water dripped from leaves as Leone tightened his grip. "Where?" "Old subway station, West Line," Tommaso gasped. 11:30, your pretty widow's listed as premium stock, clean blood work, no diseases. They'll start the bidding high." Marin's hands clenched on the valve, but she kept her breathing steady, remembering Leone's grounding exercise from days before. "Who else is compromised?" Leone demanded. "Just me," Tommaso wheezed. "Needed the layout specs, the generator schedules, knew the villa from childhood summers, easy to—" He broke off coughing. The medic checked his vitals again while Leone processed this information. Nonna had risen from her chair, her face hard as she watched her family fracture. "You marked her," Leone said finally. "Had her carved like meat." "Had to tag the merchandise," Tommaso sneered. "Company policy." The wire pulled tight with surgical precision. There was a crack. then silence broken only by the continuing spray of water. Leone nodded to Emilio, who already had his phone out. "Construction site on 8th, Leone ordered. "Foundation pour at dawn. Make it deep." Emilio and another guard efficiently wrapped Tommaso's body in greenhouse plastic while the medic collected his supplies. Nonna crossed herself once, then began sweeping broken pottery into a neat pile. Leone moved to the outdoor tap, methodically washing blood from his hands. The water ran pink, then clear. Marin approached slowly, her clothes damp from the sprinklers. "I understand," she said quietly. He looked at her, searching for fear or judgment. Found neither. "Family is supposed to protect," she continued. "He chose to hunt instead. You did what was necessary." The waves crashed against the rocks below the villa, an endless rhythm of destruction and renewal. Seawater carried the scent of salt and iron, nature's own blood memory. Around them, the night shifted back to normal routines. Guards resumed patrols, the greenhouse door was secured, and Nonna set about making tea, as if murder were simply another midnight inconvenience. The medic disposed of used supplies and updated his logs. Emilio's team worked efficiently in the dark, leaving no trace of violence among the flowering vines and herb beds. Leone dried his hands on a cloth Nonna provided, each movement precise and controlled. The water had washed away the visible stains, but not the weight of execution. Yet when he looked at Marin's healing wounds, at the determination in her stance despite all she'd endured, he felt no regret. She stood beside him now, neither seeking comfort nor offering absolution, simply present, acknowledging the dark necessity of this world she'd been pulled into. The waves continued their endless assault on the shore, each crash a reminder of forces beyond control. But here, in this moment, Leone had eliminated one threat to his protection of Marine. Tomorrow would bring its own battles, but tonight's dark work was finished. Nonna appeared with 2 cups of chamomile tea, heavy with honey, a small kindness in the aftermath of violence. Neither Leone nor Marine moved from their spot by the tap, letting the sea wind carry away the lingering sense of blood and betrayal while the waves kept their ancient rhythm against the rocks. Sunlight streamed through the villa's windows as Nonna methodically packed the medkits. Her weathered hands moved with practiced efficiency, tucking gauze and antiseptic wipes into Marin's jacket pockets. "Small, but complete," she murmured, adding butterfly closures and a compression bandage. "Like having a hospital in your pocket, Kara." The medic sat at the kitchen table, laying out instructions with clinical precision. Post-adrenaline crash can hit hard. Shaking, nausea, possibly delayed shock. This, he held up a small blue pill, is fast-acting anti-anxiety medication, only if needed, only after you're safe. Marin nodded, memorizing every detail as she had since the first night in Leone's medical room. The pill went into a zippered inner pocket. In the villa's secure room, Emilio tested communications equipment with mechanical focus. "Channel 3 is primary," he demonstrated, voice crackling through earpieces. 4 is backup. Battery check every hour until go time. Leone watched from the doorway as Marin practiced the radio sequence again. Her hands were steady now, though the carved words on her skin were barely healed. The afternoon passed in careful preparation. Nonna insisted on proper meals. Fighting needs fuel, and made them eat despite tension-killing appetite. The medic reviewed pressure points and basic field medicine. Emilio drilled emergency protocols until responses became muscle memory. As sunset painted the villa's stone walls orange, they gathered in the kitchen for final checks. Marin's jacket held the medkits, radio, backup battery, zip ties, and mace. Leone verified his weapons while Emilio confirmed the timeline. 10:55 entry, Emilio stated. Federal contact is ready for the signal at midnight exactly. Night fell like a heavy curtain. They moved in silence to the waiting vehicles, Nonna crossing herself as they departed. The drive into the city passed intense focus, each person reviewing their role. The maintenance hatch looked innocuous, just another utility cover in a quiet street. Emilio's reconnaissance had confirmed it as their best entry point. At exactly 10:55 p.m., they descended into darkness that smelled of old concrete and stale air. "I need to be visible," Marin whispered as they navigated service tunnels. "They have to surface to complete the sale." Leone's jaw tightened, but he nodded. They'd discussed this strategy for hours. "You stay where I can see you? Pearl glass means immediate extraction, no questions?" "I remember." Her voice was firm despite the tremor in her hands. They emerged into the abandoned station platform. Years of disuse had left a patina of dust, but portable lights illuminated a makeshift auction floor. Numbered circles marked bidding positions. A podium held a laptop and projector, ready to display merchandise details. Marin positioned herself near the edge of the light, highly visible but close to cover. Leon and Emilio melted into shadows, weapons ready. The wait was excruciating. Bidders filtered in through various entrances. Then Petrov arrived, elegant in his cruelty, followed by the man who had pretended to be Marin's husband. The sight of him, alive, smirking, made her stomach clench. The auction began with lesser lots. Marin forced herself to breathe steadily as numbers were called, women's lives reduced to transaction lines. When her lot number echoed through the station, she stepped forward. "Ah, our premium offering," Petrov announced with false warmth. "Clean medical history, excellent breeding potential, starting bid." The husband approached the podium with transfer papers, his confident stride saying he expected no resistance. Marin counted heartbeats, waiting for Leon's signal. Darkness crashed down as the main lights died. Flashbangs created artificial lightning, their thunder amplified by the station's architecture. Marin counted to 5 exactly, then sprinted for the podium, through afterimages and smoke. Her fingers found the solid-state drive by touch. She yanked it free as chaos erupted around her. Movement to her left, the husband, lunging with desperate hands. The mace found his eyes with satisfying accuracy. His howl of pain was cut short as she zip-tied him to the bidding rail with techniques Emilio had drilled into her muscles. Through the chaos, she tracked Leon's position by sound and shadow. He had Petrov cornered, gun steady. The choice to take him alive was tactical. A living informant could destroy more of the network than a dead example. Sirens began to wail above, right on schedule. Leon's federal contact delivering their arranged response. Smoke from the flashbangs made breathing difficult as Leon reached her position. She didn't resist when he lifted her, his grip secure but gentle despite the urgency. They moved fast through the thickening haze toward the maintenance hatch, both coughing but intact. Behind them, federal agents would find a treasure trove of evidence, the ledger drive, a living witness in Petrov, and enough paper trails to dismantle the widow pipeline forever. Marin pressed her face into Leona's shoulder as they climbed, letting his strength carry her while her heart thundered with fading adrenaline. The night air hit like a blessing, clean and cool, after the station's smoke. Emilio waited with the car, engine running. Nana would have hot water and clean bandages ready at the villa. The medic would check for injuries and shock. All the careful plans had worked, all the precise timing had held. They had survived. They had won. Most importantly, they had seized the evidence needed to protect other women from Marin's fate. As Leon placed her in the car, his hands lingered for a moment, checking she was truly unharmed. The drive back would be quick and quiet, but in this moment, as sirens filled the night and justice began its slow machinery, Marin allowed herself to breathe. The carved words on her skin would heal, the scars would fade, and she had helped ensure no other woman would be marked as she had been. The maintenance tunnel swallowed the chaos behind them, its concrete walls dampening sirens into distant echoes. Water dripped somewhere in the darkness, creating a steady rhythm that matched Marin's pulse. The air was cleaner here, free from smoke and gunpowder. Leon carried her until she gripped his shoulders. "I choose you," she said, her voice clear and certain in the dim light. He set her down carefully, his hands lingering at her waist. For a moment, he was utterly still, the controlled violence of minutes ago replaced by something raw and vulnerable. "I've lost before," he said quietly. "A car bomb took someone I thought I could love. But this..." His fingers tightened slightly. "The fear isn't death. It's losing the only person who sees past what I am, what I do." "What I see is truth," Marin replied. "Not a monster. A man who protects what matters, who keeps his word." Leon reached into his jacket and withdrew a sealed envelope. "I prepared this days ago. New identity, tickets to anywhere, enough cash to start over, a safe house in Montreal." He held it out. "Real freedom if you want it." Marin took the envelope, felt its weight, the possibility of escape, of a life unmarked by violence or fear. She tore the passport in half, letting the pieces fall into a shallow puddle where ink began to bleed into murky water. "My choice is here," she said firmly. "With you. Building something real on our terms, not running from what we could be." The tension in Leon's shoulders eased slightly. He drew out the solid-state drive they'd taken from the auction, his movements precise as he transferred the data to 2 encrypted backups. One went into his secure pocket, the other he handed to Marin. "Nana's rolling pin," she said, understanding immediately. The hollow kitchen implement had been prepared for exactly this purpose, one of many innocent-looking safeguards built into their world. Leone's phone buzzed with a single text. 5 minutes. The federal sweep would begin soon, cleaning up the mess they'd left behind. Evidence would be collected, statements taken, and a trafficking network would crumble under its own exposed weight. But that was someone else's job now. Leone moved closer, one hand coming up to cup Marin's face. His kiss was both reverent and possessive, an acknowledgement of choice, freely given and fiercely protected. She leaned into it, tasting smoke and adrenaline and promise. When they broke apart, his eyes were intense in the dim light. "You're certain?" "Completely," she answered. "No more hiding, no more running." They moved together toward the maintenance hatch where Amelia waited with their escape route secured, their arms linked naturally, steps falling into sync as they climbed back toward the surface. The night air hit them with blessed coolness. Car doors opened in sequence, Emilio in front, Leone and Maureen in back, the convoy forming smoothly around them. As they pulled away, blue lights flooded the station entrance, official vehicles converging like wolves on wounded prey. Marin leaned her head against Leone's shoulder, feeling the solid strength of him. Through the tinted windows, she watched the city slide past, its darkness beginning to soften with the first hint of approaching dawn. The gray light touched everything with possibility, turning night into morning, ending into beginning. The evidence was secure, their enemies contained, and their choice made clear in actions rather than words. Whatever came next, they would face it together, not as captor and captive, but as equals who had chosen each other despite every reason not to. The car moved smoothly through empty streets as the city began to wake. Nonna would be waiting at the villa with medical supplies and hot tea, ready to fuss over scrapes and bruises. The rolling pin would take its place in the kitchen, looking innocuous while guarding secrets that could bring down empires. Leone's arm settled around Marin's shoulders, his touch gentle despite the lingering tension in his frame. The adrenaline was fading, leaving in its wake a bone-deep exhaustion and an equally deep certainty. They had survived. They had chosen. They had won. Water from the tunnel had soaked into her clothes, but Marin didn't feel cold. Leone's warmth beside her, the steady motion of the car, and the lightening sky outside created a cocoon of safety she hadn't felt since before the attack that brought her into his world. The torn passport pieces would dissolve in that underground puddle, evidence of a future she didn't want washing away with the next rain. Her real future sat beside her, solid and certain, promising protection without imprisonment, strength without subjugation. Their convoy turned toward the coast, where the villa waited. Behind them, federal agents would be discovering the extent of Petrov's operation, following paper trails and digital breadcrumbs that would free other women marked as dirty widows. The system that had tried to claim Maureen would crumble, and she had helped destroy it. She watched the city recede in the side mirror, its shadows giving way to pre-dawn gray. Leone's heartbeat was steady under her ear, his breathing even despite the night's exertion. Emilio drove with practiced precision, taking them home by the safest route. The choice she'd made in that tunnel settled into her bones with the same certainty as sunrise. No more running, no more fear. Whatever came next, they would face it together, on their own terms, in the world they would build from the ashes of the old. Autumn sunlight warmed the villa's stone walls as Marin reviewed intake forms at the kitchen table. 6 months had transformed more than just the seasons. The widow trafficking pipeline lay in ruins, its architects scattered between maximum security cells and witness protection programs. Petrov's extradition had made headlines, though Leone's role remained invisible. The not-dead husband sang like a bird to federal agents before disappearing into protective custody, his testimony ultimately less valuable than the encrypted ledger that had exposed the entire network. Through the kitchen window, Marin watched construction crews working on the shelter wing of a Viscari-owned building downtown. Nonna supervised the renovations with eagle-eyed attention, insisting on security features disguised as modern amenities. Every window had reinforced glass, every door an electronic lock masked as trendy keyless entry. "The paint in the east wing needs another coat," Nonna declared, sweeping in with her clipboard. And the contractor tried using cheaper tiles in the shower stalls. Leone's methods had evolved with their marriage. Violence still served when necessary, but he preferred quiet control now, channeling resources into the foundation that funded both the shelter and a scholarship program. His name appeared nowhere in the paperwork, but his protection extended over every woman who sought refuge there. The medic's careful treatment had faded Marin's scars to thin silver lines. She traced them sometimes, remembering the raw wounds that brought her into Leone's world. Now she used that experience to help others, sitting with new arrivals who bore similar brands. "The mark doesn't own you," she'd told two women just yesterday, their eyes wide with recognition when she shared her story. "It's not who you are, it's what they failed to do, break you." The chapel bells chimed 3 o'clock, drawing her attention to the villa grounds, where white chairs stood in neat rows. This marriage ceremony wouldn't be the hasty legal shield of their first union. Today they would speak vows born of choice and devotion. Nonna fussed over Marine's simple white dress, dabbing at her own eyes with a lace handkerchief that had seen 3 generations of Vescari weddings. Even Emilio's usual stoic expression softened as he took his place beside Leone at the altar. Afternoon light filtered through stained glass, painting rainbow patterns across the chapel floor as Marin walked down the aisle. Leone's eyes never left her face, his gaze holding the same intensity that had first promised her protection in that medical room so many months ago. Their voices rang clear in the intimate space, speaking words of commitment rather than necessity. Leone's hand was steady as he slipped a ring onto her finger, not the tactical band from their paper marriage, but a delicate piece that matched the strength and beauty of their chosen union. Later, as sunset painted the sky in amber and rose, they returned to the villa's beach steps. The same stone where Marin had once declared she wouldn't be sold again now held different memories. Quiet conversations, shared silences, the gradual building of trust between two people who chose each other despite every obstacle. Leone's touch was reverent as he traced the faded lines on her skin where that cruel slur had once been carved. His lips followed the path of his fingers, kissing each ghosted letter as if erasing its shadow from her memory. "You were never dirty," he murmured against her skin. "You are mine, and free." The distinction mattered. Possession freely given rather than taken, protection offered rather than imposed. The moon rose over the water, turning waves to silver as they sat together on the worn stone steps. Inside the villa, life continued its peaceful rhythm. Marin arranged fresh flowers in the crystal vase that had survived 3 generations of Vescari brides. The blooms were white and pure against the darkening window, their scent mixing with sea air through the open balcony doors. Leone moved through the rooms with lethal grace, turning down lights but leaving the security system armed. To the outside world, he remained dangerous, a necessary shield between their sanctuary and those who would disturb it. But here, in their shared space, that danger bowed to something stronger. The world beyond their walls held no more threats for Marin, no more hunters searching alleyways, no more false husbands with paper marriages, no more knives carving ownership into unwilling flesh. She belonged here by choice, her freedom secured by the very man who had first offered her refuge. Nonna's humming drifted up from the kitchen where she prepared tomorrow's bread dough. Emilio's quiet footsteps patrolled the perimeter, a comforting routine rather than a prison guard's rounds. These were the sounds of home, of family chosen rather than forced. The shelter wing would open next week, offering other women the same chance at reclaiming their lives. Leone's foundation would provide education, job training, and the invisible protection of his name. The bruises would heal, the brands would fade, and strength would grow in the safety of walls built by those who understood survival. Moonlight silvered the waves as evening settled over the villa. In the soft darkness, Leone and Marin's shadows merged on the weathered stone, 2 people who had found each other in violence, but chose to build something gentle from those broken pieces. The night air carried salt and jasmine as they lingered on the steps, shoulder to shoulder, watching the tide draw patterns on their private beach. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new women seeking shelter, new battles to fight. But tonight belonged to them alone, a quiet celebration of choices made and freedom found in the most unexpected places.